at my 6.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Homesteading off the Grid, the most popular channel about nothing on the internet. That's exactly what this channel is about. It's about like nothing because it's about all kinds of different stuff. But today it is about the hide and seek world champion, in that we have one heck of a Bigfoot Sasquatch story for you, submitted by a viewer, potentially you if you're him, her, it, or they who submitted it. The submitter of today's story asked to remain anonymous, but today's video is brought to you in part by the Natiti Mini Chainsaw, 6-inch brushless chainsaw, the must-have Bigfoot Sasquatch spotting tool of the season, the upcoming holiday season here, Christmas. Because why? Because let's say you're in the perfect spot right here like this to be able to watch for him, her, it, or they to come around behind you, but you got that one nagging little limb in the way. That's where the Natiti brushless 6-inch mini chainsaw comes in to play. Watch, I will demonstrate. Perfect. It's no longer an issue. By the way, I've done my research. I only promote products I believe in. What a brushless motor is it means that it's an electric motor that runs on clean energy. There's not lots of little sparks in there throwing around wasted energy and wearing out your motor and destroying the environment. Hence, when you use brushless motors, such as the case for this Natiti 6-inch mini chainsaw, you are not killing baby seals. If you're using anything other than brushless motors, you are guilty by association. You may as well be stepping out on the ice flats with a club and killing baby seals. Sleep guilt-free tonight by purchasing the Natiti brushless mini chainsaw, knowing you killed no seals today. The link is in the description box below. Now, for the story. By the way, if you have a story associated with anything Bigfoot Sasquatch related, paranormal, supernatural, UFOs, aliens, submit it to the channel. The email is crazylake@mail.com, crazylake@mail.com. Give us permission to use your story on the channel or in print form, so we put it in one of our books, like the upcoming Bigfoot Sasquatch Files Volume 15, which is the one the story I'm reading you today is going in. Yeah, if you read the first 14, get them on Amazon. I mean, if you haven't, links in the description box below. But listen, when you submit that story, you make yourself eligible for something that this guy, me, made in my woodshed. Here, we've got this beautiful set of Grinch Christmas ornaments that are going out to Allison Weaver in Fresno, California. Allison submitted a story that's going to be in True Hauntings, Volume 3, which is coming up. It's not a Bigfoot story. It's paranormal related. Wonderful story. But she's getting these. We're going to send these out in tomorrow's mail. So, there. This is a story called Why I Stopped Deer Hunting. Again, submitted anonymously. Hi, Kevin, a.k.a. Crazy Lake. It's me. I don't know why they call me that. I'm like the most sane person I know. Me too. I'm giving you permission to use my story in print or video format. However, I ask that you do so anonymously. As you'll see as I tell this tale, I'll be making a criminal confession as I clearly admit to poaching. Sure, it was years ago and I was young, but yes, it was also very wrong, and I live in a very small community in Appalachistan, much like the one I'm sure you grew up in, and you know how people in areas like this can be. They might have an axe to grind with you for something that happened half a century ago, even if it was merely a perceived slight, and they would jump on any opportunity today to exact their long-awaited revenge. Also, I've been hesitant to tell this story because it is not too unlike a story that you yourself told in a previous volume of the Bigfoot Sasquatch Files, all of which, by the way, I've read twice. I was so excited when you finally opened an email account for your beyond awesome YouTube channel, Homesteading Off the Grid, for people like me to send in our stories. I was exuberant with the thought of seeing my name in an upcoming volume. However, as I've mentioned, due to the partially criminal nature of this story, seeing my name as a byline will have to wait for another time. While speaking with someone close to me recently, and while we were discussing all things Bigfoot Sasquatch, I mentioned to her how I'd thought off and on about submitting this story to you, but of my hesitation due to its closeness of one you've told yourself, and it was her prodding that convinced me to finally come forward with my story because, as she put it, I might help so many other people who have had the exact same thing happen to them but who are too afraid to come forward. I'm telling you folks, we've had so many people turn in stories about ghosts, Bigfoot, Sasquatch. You think you're crazy until you realize there's strength in numbers. So many people have experienced these things, potentially. This coffee is still as hot as it was when I made it an hour ago because my Stanley Trigger Action Travel thermos mug is keeping it hot. It's only 40-something degrees out here today. You know, you can get these from Amazon. I'm an affiliate, and I'll put the link to this one in the description box below, as well as these really cool t-shirts I wear. And I want to thank the many, many, many of you who actually buy stuff from those links. It helps me pay my bills. So I have another confession. Making these things don't so much. So, on to the story. With no further ado, as you like to point out, your beautiful bride dearly, aka Giggly Girl, would say, and yes, she is beautiful in my humble opinion, it's time to get to the story. Like yourself, as a young hillbilly in Appalachistan, I was constantly playing outside. Video games existed, I'm just a little younger than you, but not to the degree they do today. But still, my friends and I, just as I'm sure you and yours, would have rather been outside hunting, fishing, hiking, or camping than playing Call of Duty or Fortnite or whatever the masses of today's youth play to rot their beautiful young minds. I took up bow hunting during my early teens, though my intentions were not pure. You see, I, like my friends, was all about getting that big buck. And whether the means with which we got him were legal or not, we cared not. Basically, I'd taken up bow hunting to justify being in the woods deer hunting at the beginning of October when bow season began, rather than having to wait until late November when rifle season came in. However, it wasn't my bow with which I was doing my deer hunting. As anyone from Appalachistan can tell you, the most underutilized firearm in existence has got to be the .22 Magnum. It's a smaller caliber rifle, but with its shooting velocity and considerably larger ballistic than a regular .22 caliber long rifle, it makes for the perfect hunting weapon, as you can take small game, like squirrels and rabbits, without destroying the meat, but you can also take large game like deer. The rifle would easily kill a bear. However, it is considered too small a firearm by the government to dispatch a deer quickly and cleanly, but as you and I and anyone reading this knows, what the hell does the government know? I don't know, man. They're infinitely wise. So I'm told. Saw this blurb. I guess there's a city in Oregon where they're having a problem with homeless people setting up tents, and so the infinitely wise city council wants to put $150 million of taxpayers' money into building them a campground where they can pitch their tents and camp to get them off the streets. Hey, folks in Oregon, I might be in Virginia, but I have an idea on how to save you $150 million. Shit, man, you can send those folks with their tents here for only $75 million. I got plenty of space. I take cash, cashier's checks. PayPal me. I'm old school. I don't do all that new stuff. You know what? Times like this call for the Natiti brushless, non-baby seal killing mini chainsaw. Better. So, with this explained, I can now point out how my teenage buddies and I used to go what we called bow magnum hunting, which meant we'd take our bows and 22 magnums out with us. We'd enter the woods with the rifle, and if questioned by anyone we might run into, claim to be squirrel hunting or turkey hunting, whatever smaller game was in season, but we'd actually be deer hunting. If we were to actually kill a deer with the rifle, we'd then go back to the vehicle, head home, and claim to be getting someone to help us drag the deer, and of course, while home, put the rifle away and take back only our bow, so as not to be in the possession of a firearm should the conservation officer be waiting on us at any point throughout this journey. Devious rascals. Dang hillbillies. They never were, though, through our experience, but one can never be too paranoid. Once, I killed a huge 8-point buck while out bow magnum hunting. I'd come home, gotten a neighbor who also happened to be a distant relative. Remember, I live in Appalachia, Stan. I remember. And we returned to drag the deer out of the woods. However, when we got there, the deer was gone. Night had fallen by the time I'd returned to the woods with my neighbor/distant relative, so we were looking around for the deer in the dark with powerful flashlights, and we spotted a huge set of glowing eyes. I will admit I felt an adrenaline rush, not due to excitement, but due to fear. You see, I have always believed in Bigfoot Sasquatch. As a hillbilly from East Tennessee, I have spent too much time in the woods to know that there just has to be things out there we are not aware of. Anyway, though the thought of a Bigfoot Sasquatch did register in my mind upon seeing those glowing eyes, my fears were soon alleviated as the thing with the glowing eyes took a couple of steps toward us, sniffing the air as it did, and entered the field of beam of our lights enough to allow us to see that it was a black bear. It had found my deer while I'd been off seeking someone to help me drag it, and it had begun dragging it off and eating it while it did itself. The bear finally got a good whiff of us, and it took off tearing through the woods as if its life depended on it. It had eaten most of the rib cage out of the deer, but there was still plenty of meat left. Anyway, this is all backstory, but it needed to be told in order for you to understand the full weight of a similar situation which would happen only a couple of years later. Same thing. I killed a deer with a .22 Magnum, went back and hid the gun, grabbed a buddy to help me drag the deer, and then went back to the woods with only my bow in the vehicle. My buddy and I hiked up the hill to where I'd killed the deer. It was already dark, so we had flashlights, and when we reached the spot where I'd killed the deer was gone. We shined the lights in all directions, and we finally saw glowing eyes. "Come on," I said to my buddy, beginning to walk in the direction of the glowing eyes. "It's just a bear. This happened a couple of years ago." "I don't know," my buddy said. "Do you smell that?" I gave the air a whiff as if I were a wild animal myself, and I smelled that of which he'd spoken. To this day, I have a hard time describing the smell. It was both the first and last time I'd ever smelled anything like it. It smelled, as best as I can describe it, like a combination between a skunk and a very rotten roadkill. "It's just a skunk," I said to my buddy, and I continued walking, keeping my light trained on the glowing eyes, which were about 50 yards away. This was back during the days when a mag light was pretty much the best flashlight on the market. With today's torches, we would have clearly been able to see what it was that was standing only half the length of a football field away from us, and I would have never taken that first step toward it. However, in the dim light of the mag light, I knew not to be scared. "It'll run," I said over my shoulder to my buddy, "once it smells us." After cutting the distance between myself and the glowing eyes in half, I heard a guttural growl that sounded unlike any growl I'd ever heard before. I've heard plenty of bears in my life, but this sound was nothing like that. I turned and asked, "Did you hear that?" of my buddy, but it was only then that I realized that he'd not gone with me. And then, as if the thing with the glowing eyes had somehow floated across the distance that separated us, because I did not hear anything until then, I heard a twig break just a foot away from me, in the direction from which I had turned. I turned back around, and at first it looked as if I was shining my light into a wall. A wall, however, that was dark and furry, but not the same shade of fur of anything I'd ever seen. It was darker than a deer, much darker, but lighter than a black bear. I began moving my light upward slowly, and I soon found that I was shining my light directly into the face of that which is not supposed to exist outside of storybooks and really strange YouTube channel videos. Bigfoot Sasquatch! hide and seek world champ, brah. As my mouth opened, for I was about to scream, this beast let out an eardrum-shattering roar. I say this because later my ears would be ringing for hours, and I did not stick around to see what it might do next. I turned, and despite being in a thickly wooded forest, I ran faster than I had ever run in my life. I got only glimpses of my buddy's backside as he ran ahead of me equally fast. We made it back to the vehicle, jumped in, and pulled out of there as if our lives depended on it, because at the time we thought they did. We never went back for the deer. We never went back to look for the creature which I'd seen, not even during the day. For many years, I didn't even enter the woods. My parents thought I was suffering from depression or that I was on drugs when the following hunting season came around and I didn't go hunting. I told them I'd simply outgrown it, but they weren't buying it. Again, this was Appalachistan, where hunting is a way of life that you do not outgrow. In time, and after I would go off to college and graduate and actually get a really nice professional job, my parents stopped haranguing me about hunting. I guess they finally accepted that it just wasn't my thing anymore. But you and everyone else who will hear this story or read it knows the truth. The reason I stopped deer hunting and hiking and anything done in the woods in general has nothing to do with having outgrown it. It has only to do with Bigfoot Sasquatch. The end. So again, I want to thank our anonymous story submitter for that story. I want to congratulate Allison Weaver, who's getting this out there in Fresno, California. It's going out in tomorrow's mail, along with all that delicious lumpia my wife makes. You can get that from our Etsy store too. Yeah, I make these out of gray birch. Cut the limbs with my Natiti 6-inch brushless mini chainsaw. Sand them down, paint them. Look at that. Look at the detail on that. You can get this kind of stuff from the Etsy store. Christmas is coming. Don't be a Grinch. Buy my stuff. And buy the stuff I, get paid to affiliate, like mugs and shirts and or do me the biggest favor, and that which is most important to me of all things. Just keep coming back and watching these videos. That won't cost you a dime. See you for more next time.